Kendi, D'Angelo, and CRT. The books by Kendi and D'Angelo mentioned above are by far the most influential works promoting the ideas of CRT. Yet some have claimed that their work has nothing to do with critical race theory. This claim, too, is easily refuted. Kendi himself has acknowledged the influence of CRT on his work. I've certainly been inspired by critical race theory and critical race theorists. The ways in which I've formulated definitions of racism and racist and anti-racism and anti-racist have not only been based on historical evidence, but also Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectional theory. She's one of the founding and pioneering critical race theorists who in the late 1980s and early 1990s said, "You know what? Black women aren't just facing racism. They're not just facing sexism. They're facing the intersection of racism and sexism." It's important for us to understand that, and that's foundational to my work. To be sure, in another context, Kendi has said, "I admire critical race theory, but I don't identify as a critical race theorist. I'm not a legal scholar. So I wasn't trained on critical race theory. I'm a historian. I didn't attend law school, which is where critical race theory is taught." But there are two problems with this. First, what matters is whether Kendi is promoting ideas derived from CRT, not whether he is himself a critical race theorist in the narrow sense of a legal scholar of a certain kind. And again, he himself has admitted that his work is inspired by CRT, indeed that one brand of CRT is foundational to his work. Second, as we have seen, CRT writers like Harris, Delgado, and Stefanczyk admit that CRT is not confined to legal scholarship, but has extended far into other parts of the academy, including history, Kendi's field. So it is disingenuous for him to pretend that the fact that he didn't go to law school shows that he can't count as a critical race theorist. If you go just by the actual content of his books, and compare it to what is said in works that everyone acknowledges to be works of CRT, it is obvious that he is a critical race theorist. The same thing goes for D'Angelo. Her academic field is education rather than law, but Delgado and Stefanczyk themselves put special emphasis on education as a field on which CRT has had dramatic influence. So it would be quite silly to pretend that the fact that she, like Kendi, is not a law professor somehow suffices to show that she is not a critical race theorist. More importantly, she is manifestly a promoter of ideas drawn from CRT, whether or not one wants to classify her as a critical race theorist in some narrow sense. The central ideas of white fragility are the CRT themes of systemic racism, white privilege, the analysis and critique of whiteness, and the insufficiently radical nature of liberalism. In her book Nice Racism, D'Angelo explicitly cites the prominent critical race theorists Kimberly Crenshaw, Derek Bell, and Cheryl Harris as among the influences on her work. Some may nevertheless object that, even if it is admitted that Kendi and D'Angelo are promoters of CRT, it is inappropriate to put as much emphasis on their work as critics of CRT have, since their books are popularizations. But there are two problems with this objection. First, Kendi and D'Angelo are not mere popularizers, but academics in their own right. They can be presumed to know what they are talking about. Second, though some CRT adepts might wish that it was Derek Bell's or Kimberly Crenshaw's books, rather than How to Be an Anti-Racist and White Fragility that became bestsellers, that is not what has happened. It is Kendi's and D'Angelo's books that have, in fact, had the widest readership and influence, and thus their presentation of CRT ideas that has molded public perception of the movement. It is only natural, then, for critics of CRT to give them a proportionate amount of attention and response. As readers of my book, All One in Christ will find, the content of CRT is even more disturbing than this brief summary indicates, and it is also riddled with blatant logical fallacies, crude social scientific errors, and assumptions and policy recommendations that are utterly contrary to the natural moral law and the Catholic faith. It is unsurprising that advocates of CRT would like to disguise its true nature. but also imperative that they not be allowed to do so.